You are listening to the Airline Selection Podcast, where we bring you insights to help you succeed at airline selections. This podcast is brought to you by Airline Selection Program. Please welcome your host, airline captain and major airline recruiter, Guillaume Debauchez.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Airline Selection Podcast, where we give you expert advice, tips and hints that will help you for your airline selection, but also for your pilot career in general, to be a pilot who succeeds and a happy pilot too. And today I have Dana with me, Dana, a psychologist. And Dana, what are we going to talk about today?
Hi, Guillaume. It's always a pleasure to come back to the show. So today we're going to talk about confidence in the cockpit and what happens when pilots doubt themselves. So first, I would like to tell you a little bit about how I think that confidence is not only about just feeling good about yourself, but it's also what we call self-efficacy, which literally just means that it's the belief that you are able to handle tough challenges. So I would like to start with a question towards you. From your experience in the cockpit, how does confidence, or maybe even the lack of it, show up in a pilot's performance?
Well, I would almost like to throw back the question at you, because together we do a lot of personality questionnaire debriefs. And part of these personality questionnaire debriefs, there are some expected behaviors and some behaviors that are considered problematic from a recruitment perspective. So the first one that comes to mind is someone who is clearly underconfident, and anyone can understand that, right? Who would want to fly with a couple of pilots or with a captain who is not confident? Nobody would like to get on a plane with a pilot like that. So we expect our pilots to be confident. But what happens if you're overconfident? If you're overconfident, you don't see the risks because, don't worry, it will be fine attitude. This attitude is also dangerous. So when you go for your interview, you're actually going to be measured when it comes to your confidence to see if you have confidence in what you do. Typically, when you work, you get results and you're confident in getting results consistently. But also, if you're too confident, it's not going to work and you're going to get questions and challenges around that topic. So how does confidence relate in the cockpit? Well, that was your question, right, Dana? How does it manifest itself?
Yeah, exactly. Or even the lack of it.
Or the lack of it. It starts at briefing, really. When you see the other pilots and their posture, how they hold themselves. If they arrive and they stand straight and they look to have a good posture, they look confident, and they probably are. And then it's the way that they speak after that. And if they project their voice with assurance and they seem to know and believe in what they say, then they appear to be confident. And because they appear to be confident, this is something we teach in Advanced Interview Course version 3, actually, the concept of using your physical presence and your vocal image to bring believability. If you have strong assurance in your use of words and the use of your voice, it seems that you believe in what you say. If you believe in what you say, I will tend to believe in what you say as well. Okay. So confidence is healthy for you and it allows you to influence others. So you can immediately see someone who is confident and you are going to feel energized by their confidence. And you're also going to see someone who is much less confident, who perhaps speaks quite softly, who stays in their corner, who doesn't challenge you too much, who says yes to everything. And you're going to, as a captain, if you see a co-pilot coming like that, it can happen. You're going to start to feel that, well, maybe something's happened in this person's personal life, or something else has happened, and you're going to know that you're going to have to pull everything you can from this person, ask a lot of open questions to get them on board and pay attention to them. Okay. So now I've seen also as a co-pilot, captains are confident. They have the right amount of confidence. They qualified as co-pilots for being good enough to go to the command course. They have also passed the command course, and gradually from being new captains, they became advanced captains, so to say, and then expert captains. And then all of them are confident. Maybe a captain who's just got their command, you'll see that they gain their confidence by being super strict with their procedures and just sticking with what they know. And it's quite normal, and I've done that too. But then come a point, they get at ease with what they do, and they get really comfortable. And then after that, they get to the expert mode. But I've seen captains be much less confident. And this is slightly unusual. It's quite destabilizing for a co-pilot. I've seen, you can see this type of people, we see them very clearly in the personality questionnaire. They're the ones who, they don't tend to trust themselves, but they got into the airline, but they don't trust themselves. And they also will tend to not that much trust others. There's a big trust issue on both. It's two different types of trusts. And this type of person you will feel their stress right from the beginning. And the way that they manage this is that they counter it by knowing all the books, by knowing all the procedures by heart, by memorizing a lot of things, and they build in knowledge what they somehow lack in their nature. And this results in you being faced with someone who doesn't trust themselves, who knows a lot, and who doesn't trust you either, and so who will micromanage you so that you do things the way they want, because that's the thing that they're comfortable with at the end of the day.
Mhm.
This is the micromanager. The person who doesn't trust you, doesn't trust themselves, is the micromanager, someone who is always quite close to a burnout state in their mind. And of course, it's not ideal. It is rare, but if you're a co-pilot and you see someone like this, just know that this is happening in them. And the best way to manage this type of people is, first of all, to show compassion. They are not doing it against you. They are just like that. But they have passed the command course. They are good at what they do in a way. And the idea is to, as much as possible, give them comfort in the fact that you are here to help, that you are someone serious, someone professional. And personally, my little trick with this type of characters is to put them in some sort of a training role. Remember, they know a lot. And go, wow, I've seen that you've done this way. Can you tell me more about this procedure? And they love that. And now all of a sudden, they trust you. And now you've brought the CRM a bit more above the line than it was. Okay. So I know I've gone far away from your original question, but I thought it was an interesting topic. So you can see confidence visually, and you can hear it in the way someone talks.
Yes, definitely. So the kind of I would just add this kind of like a smoothness in decision making, and also how they carry themselves. Let's say
Definitely.
like clear communication, being present, being decisive. Because otherwise, that would be just an additional question. When you think that somebody lacks that, do you think that can come out in, let's say, like in hesitation in what they do, or just I think the micromanagers also come here because they also do lack.
Yeah. So
Or
I talked about captains there, but then it's
Mhm.
surprising when it happens in a captain, because they're in a leadership role, and when you're in the leadership role, you're supposed to be confident. Yes, we talked about the captain who just became a captain, who, of course, it's new. So like anything new, they are not yet an expert. And the aviation is built like that when you get released into a new role or onto a new airplane, well, it is accepted that there's going to be a beginning to that. And during that beginning, you're still supposed to be safe enough. And the more you're going to grow in your expertise, the more that barrier is, that margin is going to be high. And anytime you go to the sim, you're supposed to be super safe because you've just revised everything. And then gradually it's going to go down. But it should always be with a margin, so that when the 6 months come, maybe your margin is a bit smaller now, but now you get the injection of the sim and you go back up, and it's like that all the time. So there's a margin. But now, as a co-pilot, there's a margin on the captains, like even if they're not too confident. What I was trying to say is that they still have earned their seat. And if there were enough incidents, then management would not let them stay captains. So let's not focus on that too much, because they are quite rare, these types. But now on the co-pilot side, it's much more common, because now it's not just the captain seat that's new, it's everything that's new. And you're arriving in an airline, and it starts right from the line training, which is, I remind you, the toughest part of your whole training is that line training. A lot of people think it's a type training. No, it's the line training. That's why we have the operational procedures course to help you through your line training in a nutshell, to help you enter an airline as a professional and have a good time early in your career. But so a young co-pilot will arrive and everything will be new. So they've studied the best they could, but now it's real life. It's no longer a sim scenario that to some extent you can expect and prepare for. Now it's real life. And real life comes with lots of humans at the back of the plane, lots of humans under the plane to prepare it, lots of variables that you can only discover with experience. So, well, your confidence gets dented from day one, really.
Yeah, I think if I can add something here that I think that there could be a difference between how confidence gets affected in, let's say, pilots who just started out and also people
Yeah.
who have, or pilots who have a lot of who have a lot of history in aviation. Because I think that students or even just the young aviators, they have this what I would call this outcome based confidence. So something that, okay, how did I do on the checks? Did I get the instructor's praise? Anything like this. I would
Yeah.
say that it is a little bit fragile because, of course, they're just building themselves up. But it also means that they can, because they have a lot of external validation, they get a lot of feedback from the outside. This also makes them quite flexible, and then they can bounce back faster. But I'm just thinking that maybe captains who have a longer history in aviation, of course, they can build on on whatever happens with them. But do you think sometimes that can make them also a bit less flexible?
The captains that have a lot of experience,
Mhm. Yeah, just because
it will
that
depend.
they might be.
It will depend because the captain of the type that I described to you before, who doesn't,
Mhm,
who maybe lacks a bit of confidence in themselves and a lot of confidence in you, or both, they are always going to be quite difficult to work with. And as they gain experience, if no one speaks up to them, they're just going to continue to function like that. And they will tend to be difficult to approach. They'll tend to sort of build their own little SOP on top of the SOP, things they like to be done this way
mhm,
on their flight, on top of what's supposed to be done.
mhm,
But I would say that when you're a new captain, you will stick to the rules as much as possible. And when you grow in experience, you will, of course, always follow the rules. Pilots love following the rules, but you will build an awareness on where rules tend to not work properly or not be as safe as maybe an adjustment. Doesn't necessarily mean
mhm,
breaking the rules. If you follow the course, you will understand what I mean. But the more
mhm,
experienced pilots tend to be, the more I've seen them be much more comfortable with the unknown.
mhm.
Be
Okay.
comfortable
Yeah.
with not knowing, be comfortable with letting you do what will allow you to be involved in your work. And so they will tend to
Mhm,
have great CRM and to just let you run your sector the way you please and fly the airplane the way you like, because there are so many different modes you can use in different ways to achieve the same outcome. And they let you have pleasure in your flying. And you won't feel their hand around your neck at all. Of
mhm.
course, you know that they're
Okay.
there. They've arrived with a confident deportment. You have confidence that if something happens, they'll be there for you, but they will be very relaxed in that respect. And that's the highest level that you can get. This is people like that
Mhm.
typically tend to become instructors because they get spotted. And that's the attitude you want from an instructor. An instructor that holds you like this, well, you're never going to learn anything. Okay. Of
Yeah,
course, it should
that's
never
actually
get outside
perfect.
safety, but
Mhm. Yes, it's actually perfect that you mention it because that's something that I wanted to talk to you about too. How you think that airline culture or even training culture can protect or even undermine the pilot confidence.
yeah.
But as you said, this psychological safety, good CRM, um, spaces where you can just where you feel supported and that you know that people are standing by your side and they are also willing to learn from you, but they also give you the space to just build your own experience. I think that would be very important.
Yes, and well, if we come back to the line training,
Mhm.
it's a instructors know. I mean, say you got to do in my time, I did 40 sectors. Okay, I know airlines now do a bit more, but say that 40 is the goal. On sector 1, the instructor knows he's going to have to do everything. And on sector 1, he's like, oh my god, my first sector was like Manston in Kent, which is completely to the east of in the east of England, to Amsterdam, 42-minute flight. I mean, I saw absolutely nothing. The instructor has to do everything. I managed to make a few radio calls, of course, but not much more. And gradually you gain confidence. All of this is expected. Stress can come when after 10 sectors, you're below the bar of the average, right? The instructors start to grade you at the level you're at because they're not going to grade you to please you. And then you can start to get into this, the common progression curve, where if you're a bit below, you're going to work harder and you're going to get higher. And then if you were very good, at some point you're going to dip on a day where you don't know why the performance isn't there. Actually, all you were doing is maturing your knowledge, and you were on that day, what happens, you didn't respond properly. You're going to work harder, and then you're going to get back on the curve, and then in the end you will succeed. It is true that some people do not pass the line training. It happens. So it's no joke, because then that's the whole everything that you've done in the past that leads you to this point. And if you fail, going and convincing another airline to trust you is quite a difficult interview exercise. I had a case myself where very similar to that, where one of the toughest things I've ever done was at BA, going from the Airbus 320 as a co-pilot to going to the Boeing 777 as a co-pilot on long haul now, of course. I went, like all of us at these major airlines, you go from short haul to long haul, and very often, sometimes you go from Airbus to Boeing. Doing this, it was so difficult because the Airbus and the Boeing are quite different, really, in philosophy. The design of a long haul plane and the variability that can come with the different weights and all of that means that it's quite a different type of airplane altogether. Even though it looks the same, it's 4 times bigger and it's a bit different. But the network, the oceanic procedures, and all of that, that's like brand new. And all in all, I think we had 5 flights online training to get you released on the line. So there was line training again on long haul, of course, like there is on all new airplane types. But in this case, because it was long haul, so they had to send you to 3 different areas where you had to qualify, etc. And after the third one, so there was the third one, the fourth one was the release check, and the fifth one was the exam. And on the third one, the instructor, I remember, he was quite harsh. He was quite harsh. He told me, I don't think you're gonna, you're below the progression level. I think when you're not quick enough in your oceanic procedures, you seem to be behind on this and that. I said, well, there was de-icing in Denver, and I think I did quite well, actually, because I do de-icing also. I did de-icing a lot in Europe. And he said, yeah, that's true. You did well there, but still you're behind the plane. You're behind the procedures. Your calls are imprecise. I need to be behind you quite a lot. And I think you're going to need some extra sectors. So I tried to fly a good approach into London, and I was set to prove him wrong, and I did. So on the next flight, I had a lovely instructor. Thank God we went to New York, I remember. And he was a lovely, lovely instructor. But I worked at home on my chair, trying to make sure my oceanic procedures were good. And fortunately, the approach into New York, which is a bit daunting in those days, the Canarsie approach, it went well. And so I regained my confidence and I passed. But you see, it can happen to, I'm no Superman. When I work, I get results, but I'm like everyone. I had setbacks for sure. I had approaches that didn't go well early in my career at BA on the Airbus 320. I caused a go around because I was completely behind it was very early. I was completely behind on the energy management. The captain was very nice. She let me do it to a point, and I think she figured that it was better to let me see it and to hope that I would catch it. And then in the end, we went around. And when we were on the ground, she gave me a bit of a energy management lesson. She told me, okay, you're behind. This is what you should do. And I learned a lot from her. So it happens. It will happen to all of us, this kind of things.
Yeah. But at least when you have that kind of environment where other people are trying to help you, even if
Yeah.
sometimes it is through tough words, but that just made you work a little bit harder. So it's kind of from both sides, I
Yes, and
feel.
on
And
the
then
on the one for the long haul, on the one on my transition to long haul,
Mhm,
I my ego played in my favor. I wanted to prove this instructor wrong. And the one on
mhm,
short haul, I think she also got surprised that I didn't slow down earlier, and come a point she cut it a little bit too thin as well for her. That's why she went like, okay, let's just discontinue the approach, and let's not let's not make it more complicated. Let's not
mhm,
try. Okay, it's not a problem. And then we came back. I think she would have preferred to catch it a bit earlier and go, okay, you know what? I have control. Let me finish this, and let's
mhm,
talk about it on the ground. But in whichever case, we learned from this. There was another time where I pressed the wrong button on the Airbus, and essentially, if for anyone who's qualified on the Airbus, we hadn't activated the approach. So this means that when the airplane ended up wanting to speed up again, when we intercepted, and so the airplane had way too much energy, and the captain took over from me on that. So it's all happened quite quickly. It was all within my first year, and
mhm.
then I spoke with other co-pilots, asked them, did it happen to you? Said, yeah, this happened to me once as well. And so, well, just be careful. So what do you do for this? Well, I do this and that. And that captain, he gave me so many good tips, because he did a great
Mhm.
job recovering. He decided to go for the approach anyway, but he took control, and he managed to get the energy under control. And once we were on the ground, he told me, hey, Guillaume, so tell me, how often do you compute your descent path? I'm like, what do you mean? ATC vectors us and I compute my descent path, but we're always roughly. He said, no, how often do you make your 3 times table and your calculations? I'm like, I don't know, every 30 or 40 seconds maybe, but I wasn't even convinced with my own answer because this hadn't been taught, you see. And he said, no, my friend, it's every 10 seconds. All the time below 10,000 feet, you do this. And he got
Wow.
me to rehearse a bit. And after that, I never had a problem, ever.
Mhm.
So it's so nice to
Okay.
be with people like that. He didn't judge me, didn't do anything. He just gave me a bit of a wake-up call. We didn't even fill a report
Mhm.
on that one. He just told me, okay, now you need
Mhm.
to do this. Next time I see you, I want you to be on the ball.
Okay. Yeah, that is that's a good way to treat the other person. So
Yes.
maybe just like one more question from my side, or at least we can think about it together too. That what do you think if somebody here who is listening, somebody would struggle with their confidence? What would be your take, or what would be your suggestion? What to do?
Well, the first thing is to recognize it. Okay. And I think that's something we wanted to talk about, Dana, as well, just before we get into helping our
Okay.
listeners here with their issues that they may be facing, is how can you spot it as well in someone? I think you asked the question, and I digressed. As a captain, you spot someone like what happened to me, right, with this lady captain and this other captain who ended up, for which I made the approach really difficult. You see that someone's lost their confidence a bit when the first thing that drops is their workload management. They've got too much to do, and they're disorganized, and they don't manage to get their chickens back together, so to say. Okay, everything's all over the place, and you see that and the next thing that goes, their situational awareness is gone, and then they're basically they are gradually they're gone. They're not able to operate at a level that is okay. And maybe they feel stressed, and then they get on the other side of the stress curve, and then it's a disaster. So that I wanted to mention that because it's important. If you feel that you are running after things, you're not managing your workload, it's probably you've just sort of lost this. You're not feeling confident and you've lost it. Just tell your colleague, "Hey, I think I've lost my situational awareness here." Just tell them. As a captain, it would be nice for someone to tell me that they think that this happened before I discover it, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, I think you can also see that on other people. For example, if they hesitate more than usual, or
yeah.
they overcorrect small mistakes, that can also be a sign for that.
Yes.
But definitely, as you said, sharing your struggles with other people would be very important. as you mentioned before, first of all, you have to be honest with yourself. You have to have this awareness that this is happening to you. Because if you push it away or you try to hide it, then it's not going to. Yeah, it might lead to more serious issues. And then you can just start small. You can start with one achievable goal and then just work your way up to that. You shouldn't do that alone, for sure. As you said, the best
No.
way is to share your struggles with someone, because then
Yeah.
they're likely to help you.
Yeah, and I know that you're not alone. And the reason I'm sharing these now, and you may think, well, Guillaume, you're a 777 captain. Look at the mistakes you made. Yeah, I had an 18-year career. Yeah, I'm not Superman. I made mistakes, and lots of our colleagues do. And you'll see we've got a whole series of other interviews lined up with. They'll tell you, at the beginning of their career, they made mistakes. They were juniors at some point. So we like to portray the idea that we are like, A-type personalities that never make mistakes. In reality, we all make them. And I've shared them so that you know that it's okay. But now you need to act once you have them. You can't let them affect you for too long. It's good that if they affect you, it's normal to start with. But if it affects you for months and months and months and months, well, the idea is that it affects you so that you can do something about it. Because if they didn't affect you, it means you wouldn't care, and then you would never progress. So let it affect you a reasonable amount. Talk to someone as quickly as possible. Who? Well, if you are at an airline where there is a peer support, you will know what it is. If you're at an airline, it's basically a group of pilots who can listen to you anonymously. They will see who you are, but they will not report what you say. They are here precisely for that, so that you can speak. Sometimes all that is needed is to speak. If you don't have that, well, maybe there's an instructor that you like who was nice with you. Like I had my really nice instructor I flew to New York with. I knew I could confide in that guy and that he would not create problems for me, for instance. Or you could have another pilot that you know who's from your batch. I remember I had one captain friend of mine who came to me when we were young captains. We just became captains, and he came to ask me a question about what I would do in this situation, and he made a mistake. Typically, he ended up not going around when he should have. Okay, and he asked me what I would have done, and I told him I would really have gone around. He said, just don't beat yourself over the head. But I think I wouldn't play with this. I really wouldn't do that. So you can go and speak with. But there could be other times where you could, for instance, when I had to offload someone one day, and I shared it with my colleagues. Oh no, on this one, I shared it with my colleagues, and they said, "Oh yeah, I would have done it," and others said, "Oh no, I wouldn't have." And you go, "Okay, there's two sides to this. Okay, so I'm on this side." One day I had to take over from a co-pilot who was typically, in this case, he lost confidence. He was completely overwhelmed. He was on his third flight on the 777. He missed all the radio calls. He did a really bad landing. I had to take over at the landing phase. I ended up deciding to discuss it with training, because he was on his third flight. I think he needed a bit more retraining with an instructor, not with me. And discussing it with my batchmates, I wasn't sure myself. Did I make the right call? Have I become a bit too harsh? Am I becoming this sort of guy? And one of my batchmates told me, "Really? You reported him? I wouldn't have done that." And another one, when it was in a WhatsApp group, went, "Well, I think that's pretty courageous, because at the end of the day, do we want our families to fly with someone who still can't master his landing technique?" So there was again a bit of a debate, and then I went like, okay, again, there were two sides to it, and I was able to balance it because I spoke with others. And finally, you can speak with us. We are here for you. Dana's here for you. We, just like in the previous episode, if you want to share something, you can share it directly on Discord if you're comfortable with sharing something that perhaps happened to you a long time ago, so it's no longer an issue to share it. Otherwise, share it with us privately, and maybe with your authorization, we will write an anonymous thing that we can share in the airline psychology section of Discord, so that we can engage a conversation on it. Okay. More than likely, it's fine. And if you've never made mistakes, that's one thing that comes at interview often, is we ask people to volunteer some mistakes, and then if nothing comes and you've got 4,000 flight hours, well, we know that they're not telling the truth. So we all make mistakes, and we all have our confidence affected at some point.
Yes, very true. So thank you very much, Guillaume, for today's talk. I'm already looking forward to our next one. And for anyone who is listening, if you are interested in more in-depth information about our article, you can head to our website
That's
and
right.
you can just follow us there, check it out, because we have a lot of other interesting articles in this topic.
That's right. All of these videos in this series, they have an article. Let's link to it in on our website. And as always, all of this that we're bringing you today here, it allows you to think, to get to know us as well. And I know that one good way to be confident is to have the knowledge. Something we teach is the pilot competencies. At the base of it is the knowledge. And if you know more about what's waiting for you at the interview or what's waiting for you in the early days of operation, this is also how you can build the path to a better decision. Okay, so take a look at our courses. Always speak with others. If you're already a client, go onto the Slack channel and exchange with others. Anyway, I'm not gonna monopolize the microphone any longer. Let's say see you at the next episode.
Perfect. See you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
This podcast was brought to you by Airline Selection Program, a company that is focused on helping you succeed at airline selections. Our flagship course, Advanced Interview Course, has helped hundreds of pilots just like you become successful. Visit our website at online.airlineselectionprogram.com and find out how you too can get the job of your dreams.